We're back in Scandinavia, where the snow is falling, and the girls are not that pretty. And we got some sushi, we got some Red Bull, we got some soy sauce, of course, and we got some agua con gas, and we're ready. We're ready.
Ascension Destiny that some people have noticed is Bungie's strange obsession with placing the reticle for shooting anywhere but the direct center of the screen. If I ruined Halo and Destiny forever by pointing this out, then I'm sorry, but some men just want to watch the world burn.
Well, I don't even understand what the fuck you're talking about.
Keys for various games bound to the extra buttons on the side of the mouse, I was ready to begin my adventure. I'd like to thank the folks at Razer for sponsoring this video, and hopefully you guys enjoy. A detail about the Halo series, and by extension Destiny, that some people have noticed is Bungie's strange obsession with placing the reticle for shooting anywhere but the direct center of the screen. If I ruined Halo and Destiny forever by pointing this out, then I'm sorry, but some men just want to watch the world burn. Jokes aside, ever since Destiny continued its crusade of lowering the crosshair that it adopted from the Halo series, more games have begun to do it, such as Prey 2017 and Far Cry 5, with more recent examples being Hunt Showdown and Borderlands 3. All of these games jumped on the lowered crosshair train and give you options to lower the reticle or keep them centered. Why did Bungie do this in the first place, though? Halo Combat Evolved has its crosshair centered, and then, starting with Halo 2, they shoved that thing down the screen and it became a series staple until Halo 5 broke tradition and recentered it. There's a couple of reasons that are more clever than you'd think. It makes a lot of sense in games like Counter-Strike to have the reticle dead center because more often than not, all encounters are met on mostly the same plane. In Halo, though, verticality is an ever-present factor in both level design and engagements thanks to Master Chief's moon shoes that let you bounce around freely. By lowering the reticle, you're given an increased awareness of what's directly in front of you and above you at any given time. Instead of having to swing your view up and down to see what's above you and in front of you and get all motion sick, you can comfortably fire at the enemy directly in front of you while also being able to scan the top of your screen for that nasty jackal sniper that's waiting to take a shot. It's interesting as well because as time progressed, Bungie began to form a lot of their art and vistas around this specific reticle positioning. If you want to know a little bit more detail about it, go watch this GDC talk that I'll link down below from Bungie. More emphasis was placed on impossibly tall structures and things so far off in the distance that it gave off the impression of a level being larger than it actually was. It's both a gameplay technique to allow for better clarity.
Is this gonna be annoying for me or no?
When coupled with good art direction, a stylistic technique that gives Halo and Destiny the unusual ability to make the world seem vast that really no other game seems to capture, including
well, now I will,
5.
but I
this
wouldn't
illusion
probably
is
have.
really easy to break on Destiny 2 for PC. If you raise the reticle to the center of the screen, instantly the world feels a lot smaller and more claustrophobic because your peripheral vision is now more limited and not how Bungie intended it.
It's
a problem that I also feel affects Halo 5 quite a lot. You'll notice that half of your screen is just the ground, with platforms above you and potential lurking enemies being completely obscured. And really, there's no...
I mean, there must be one that's advantageous in the PvP scenario at least. I don't think it matters much for the campaign.
But didn't I say that Halo Combat Evolved had a centered reticle? I did. So why doesn't it bother me like Halo 5's does? And the truth is, it does kind of bother me. Combat Evolved is basically a perfect game in every way but its reticle positioning. But I do think that how it's able to get away with its centered reticle
it literally doesn't matter for PC users, honestly.
Their guns on the screen
what the fuck?
Specifically for that centered reticle, which is a thing not a lot of shooters do, especially Halo 5. Halo Combat Evolved is probably the only game in the Halo series where it looks like you're firing upwards, if that makes sense. Chief has his gun really low and close to his hip and is firing upwards at the enemy's head. You notice that some guns in Combat Evolved look more like they're in the center of the screen. When future Halo games lowered their reticle
Just
position,
here for the emotes and the
Bungie
fisting, good
adjusted
sir.
animations so that guns are more to the side of the screen and not in the way of the now lowered reticle. Why it bothers me in Halo 5 is because despite the reticle no longer being lowered, the guns are still animated and positioned as if the reticle is lowered. It looks almost like Chief's arm is coming out of his ear or something with how high he holds most of his weapons. This doesn't help with the fact that you already lose a lot of visibility
My immersion?
above you, coupled with how much space the gun now takes because it's been raised on your screen. Destiny 2 is exceptionally annoying with the centered crosshair.
Halo is
The
75
guns are
field of
not
view and
meant to be
can't change
raised
it.
This high. I can't
Are you
even
sure?
see when using certain
new-
guns, so I always
new
make
ones
sure
are
to keep that
75?
reticle at a healthy position below
Remakes?
the center of the screen. Halo Reach will soon be arriving on PC.
It's
And on
120.
PC, there will be options to lower or raise the reticle. And the problem is also present here.
Oh my
Why is Noble
God.
6's face located directly on his chest? Look at the DMR, it looks weird. These games were designed to be viewed in a specific and stylistic way. These vistas and skyboxes were hand-built to be viewed near the top of your screen without the ground.
I've seen worse.
So much real estate on your screen. Encounters with enemies were built with an offset reticle so that you could see what's in front of you and above, without the ground just taking up so much
Oh,
dead
fuck
space.
me!
I'm glad the option is there for folks to center their crosshair because some people do genuinely prefer it to be centered. But it's certainly not how I enjoy my shooters, especially Halo and Destiny. I'd be curious to hear if I explained my line of thinking well, or if I'm just a poop from a butt. Both options are completely valid. I'd also
It
really
seems
like
like
to
we
thank
have a
the folks
problem,
at Razer
chat.
for introducing me to a new form of PC gaming that I didn't quite know existed. The Viper is the first mouse I've owned with
We need to
extra
conserve
buttons, so
our
assigning
snus
certain actions
supplies.
such as my class abilities in Destiny to these has actually freed up keys on my keyboard in-game.
Which is
I
fine.
can't stress enough how thoroughly enjoyable this mouse
'Cause we're
has been
playing
while making this
campaign.
video. And if you
We
are
don't
curious
mind
to get into
losing.
PC gaming, this is probably the mouse I'd recommend that you check out.
I think I have one in the fridge actually. Well, doesn't seem like an issue to me. Stop with your fucking updates. Thank you very much. Pro99 Matt on the stream says, good time to learn something about Ice Spice folklore. Ice Spice? You mean that's Icelandic? The Wild World. What the hell is this? This better not affect my internet download speed. I'm actually
Hey
gonna
kids, from clubbing seals to inventing new compound nouns for snow, nobody knows how to kick it quite like the Inuit. Of course, if you're a close-minded tree dweller like me, you might initially think that they can't be that good at storytelling, given that they only know about like 6 things. But that's not true. They've actually got an incredibly complex and fascinating oral tradition. You could ask one about it. There's plenty of these
Is
guys
it
around
oral
today, but
tradition?
they've got Jesus and microwaves and shit, and that's boring. We want to talk about the stuff from before missionaries came and sent their miserable way of life to a farm upstate. So instead, let a 20-year-old college kid who's never lived outside of Delaware tell you all about it. Obvious disclaimer, Inuits are super diverse. Calling a caribou Inuit a copper Inuit is like calling a copper caribou a caribou caribou. Sure, they both look the same from far away, but when a thunderstorm hits, you better know which one to hide under. As such, while most of the following can be applied in broad terms to most Inuits, the little details come from a variety of subcultures that don't necessarily
know what
represent the
Inuits
whole.
are.
Got it? Swank. Now, a lot of the world's faiths are centered around bringing people together and inspiring them with stories and images of the divine, so as to give them a wider sense of purpose here on Earth. That's all well and good, but that whole search for
Oh.
greater meaning thing only
Samis?
really comes into play once your original
Eskimos?
purpose of making sure you don't die is pretty much figured out. Not so for the Inuit. You see, it ain't so easy living in a place where plants can't grow and being naked for an hour means certain death. As such, their beliefs were a little more practical.
I don't know
They
the
were more so
difference
geared
between a
towards
Sami and an
fostering the
Eskimo. I
paranoid
thought it was
levels
the
of
same thing.
fear required to survive in such a hostile environment.
Is
For
there a
example,
difference?
the Inuit believe that everyone has a sort of life force or soul, what they called Anirnik, and like plenty of religions, they believed it lived on after death and could meddle in the world
I
of
mean, I don't know
mortals.
I don't
But
know
while
if that's
most cultures
racist or
regard
not,
animals
but
as being
I just don't know. I thought it was the
spiritually
same
inferior
thing.
meat puppets, to the Inuits, a creature's soul is just as powerful and vengeful as that of a person. And like I said, up there in the Arctic, not much
I'm not
greenery
trying
in the
to resist, I
scenery,
just don't
so
know
they
if the
basically
difference.
had no choice but to devour
Both live in
nothing but
iglus, no?
souls every single day. And wouldn't you know it, souls don't much care for getting ate. So the Inuit made sure to follow a complex set of guidelines on how to placate their prey in the afterlife, lest the pissed off ghost of that Arctic tern whispers sweet nothings into a polar bear's ears and turns your whole village into a big Japanese flag by sunrise. Here's a few. If you kill something, make sure you eat it all. Just as an American who doesn't clean his plate doesn't get dessert, an Inuit who doesn't eat all his walrus doesn't get any more walrus. Ever. Till they starve. If you kill a polar bear, make sure to point its head towards the direction it came from so it can find its way home more easily. If you pull a seal out of the water, give him some
Light
fresh
mode.
water
Yeah, you
so he's
deal
not
with it now.
thirsty when you bash his brain in. Also, its
Wait, I have
spirit
light
lives in its
mode
bladder, so make sure to hold
in
on to it
Spain
until
too,
the
don't I?
yearly bladder festival, where everyone gets together, blows up their bladders like balloons, and throws them out to sea so
No?
they can reincarnate into new seals. These taboos aren't all just about hunting though. For some reason there's a load of them about pregnancy. Don't make fun of people's facial features or else the baby will have the same features. Don't walk backwards or else the baby will come out backwards, dangerous. Face your bed towards a doorway or it'll come out sideways, also dangerous. Don't wrap rope around your hand or it'll come out with the umbilical cord around its neck, extremely dangerous. Don't drink directly from a soup bowl or it'll come out with dark skin, not touching that one. Don't put a bowl on your head or else it'll be wearing the placenta like a hat, too hilarious, and the list goes on. Central to the consequences of breaking a lot of these rules is the being known as Sedna. The story behind Sedna varies pretty wildly between different groups of Inuits, but here's the gist of it. She was once a young girl who pissed everyone off, either by being annoying or eating too much food or rejecting an arranged marriage or marrying a dog for some reason. So her father throws her out of a kayak, and when she tries to get back in, he chops off all her fingers. The sea goddess sees this, furrows her long floppy seaweed brow, does a sassy snap, and the girl turns into an immortal sea witch, while her disembodied fingers turn into the first seals. And to this day, Sedna sits at the bottom of the ocean, growing new fingers which promptly fall off and turn into all the world's seal lions and narwhalruses. That is until someone goofs up in some small arbitrary fashion,
make this
like,
shit
yo,
up?
Sedna, bad news. I just caught a guy chewing a piece of blubber. What's wrong with that? Well, he wasn't looking north while he did it. Are you fucking kidding me? In his defense, he was standing right on the pole, so he literally couldn't look anywhere but south. He could have moved! That's it! No more fingy foods for 3 moons! Another fun creation myth is how the moon and sun came to be. So long ago, there were these two siblings named Melina and Aningin. The two got along just fine as kids, but as the two got older, they were put into their respective genders' living areas and saw each other less and less. Then one day, Aningin got the feeling that his lower nose was in dire need of some Eskimo kisses. So that night, he snuck into the women's lodges, saw his sister, thought, I pick that one, and proceeded to do, unspeakable things, technically becoming his own Eskimo brother. But it was too dark at the time for Melina to tell what happened. The next night, Ningin's like,
I'll fucking do it again.
only this time, Melina smears soot all over his face. So later, she goes over to the men's lodges, and who has crap all over his face but her brother? This makes her so mad that she cuts off her own breasts with a knife, puts them in a bowl, throws them at Ningin, and says, if you enjoy me so much, then here, eat 'em. Go ahead. Eat my disembodied, quivering titties. She runs off into the night with a torch, and Ningin is really remorseful or horny or something, so he chases after her with his own torch, and they end up running so fast that they took off like a plane into the sky, and Melina became the sun while Ningin became the moon. Excuse me, Mrs. Elder, if the sun and moon didn't exist yet, how did he do that stuff at night when there was no night? Now, some details of the story are tied into real-world phenomena. Some say that Aningin tripped and messed up his torch, which is why the moon is so dim. And the moon cycles are because he gets really skinny from chasing after her for so long. And the new moon is when he goes away for a few days to hunt seals so he can fatten back up. But here's the kicker. Nobody ever explains what the whole lopping off her tits part was supposed to represent. That's entirely just creative liberty. Just like, yes, that's why the sun doesn't have tits. Probably for the best it doesn't, otherwise half the population will be blind by now, and worse, it's the half that makes up 85% of my viewer base. So you know what? Thanks for slicing and dicing them tea towels, Melina. I kinda owe you my career. But as for you, your eyes are valuable. You should treat them to something more substantial and informative. Like say, a library of high-quality exclusive documentaries. Sponsor time. Curiosity Stream was founded by the dude behind the Discovery Channel, and it's great for someone like me who horks down any useless knowledge he sees, like the brave gators keeping America's...
Alright. All good.